what up? I just had a session the other day and it was pretty stellar. Pretty textbook in regards to kind of human activation and identifying electrochemical miscommunication and things like that. Pretty cool session. This individual started doing the meditations on our channel and said that he actually was receiving really intense stimuli, so he was excited to, or inclined rather, to do a session. I feel like this procedure gives a really good example of clearing up all of the distortion that we are allowed to, because essentially there's different membranes of static, or this disequilibrium. Imagine that there's static on this one layer and you clear that off and you get to this membrane, and you're not always able to kind of pass that membrane and go to the next layer of static until you increase the excitability or do things to eliminate obstructions or other forms of miscommunication. So in initially identifying the core discord, we cleared it up and it suddenly stopped manifesting as any type of stimuli. So I figured, okay, well, where else do we need to go? What else needs to work? It was just very peculiar because the stimuli waned very quickly. So when that happens, it makes me wonder, well, what else is going on here? So like I said, before I started filming, we were able to identify a primary form of resistance in the solar plexus, and this was manifesting as some pretty intense jolt-like stimuli emanating from the thoracic cavity, solar plexus area. So let's go ahead and start this. All right, so this patient is from YouTube, and they were doing one of the guided meditations and their body began convulsing, and they were almost shown this black-like gooey substance that came from the solar plexus that he was working with, or that was interacting with him. So what I did in the beginning of the session was I went in the heart, came back negative. So I went into the sacral and then worked in the heart at the same time, and he had a slight jerk kind of go through the center of the body. I then went into the solar plexus and started isolating self-doubt, working with the frequency of self-empowerment, and we started getting some good tremoring. So why don't we go ahead and start working with that self-doubt or any limiting beliefs that are located in the solar plexus. So as you can see, we sit here for a good solid amount of time, and we don't really receive any feedback that is that apparent or that significant, other than an irregular breathing pattern that does transpire here in a moment. So we're getting a nice deep breath. It's very subtle. But since most of this layer seems to be cleared up, let's go ahead and go in the throat. It's very subtle stimuli. Beautiful. When we start working with the suppressed emotions, the stimuli that we receive is so subtle, most people wouldn't even really notice it, but it actually emanates from around the throat area, and you can see almost this energy travel up the spine. So while I was in the throat, I was isolating suppressed emotions. And we saw a little shift kind of go whoop right through the body. I want to just go in the brainstem and stimulate the pons. So while working in the brainstem, we find another area of electromagnetic resistance, which is in, I believe, the pons. Beautiful. You can see his excitability here has clearly increased. So what was interesting about that was I was working in the back of the brainstem, and all I did was go to the front of it. So now it's showing us some of the primary resistance is in the solar plexus. So we crack this code or increases excitability, raises voltage through working with the front of the brainstem, front of the pons. So we just want to continue stimulating or exploiting this resistance emanating from the solar plexus. Notice how when we get the body in the state that it needs to go in, that it almost shows us where the issue is. What I want to target now is ancestral trauma and work with clearing the karmic imprints of the trauma stored within his DNA from his ancestors. Now here I want you to pay close attention. We start isolating different things here, and look at how the stimuli waned when we started isolating the ancestral trauma. It was clearly showing that that's not a primary issue right now, and we need to continue working with what we're working with. Even working with the root chakra begins inducing jolt-like stimuli that's emanating from the lower region of the body. And try to move into the root and work with the first DNA strand. So we can see working with the brainstem induce some of the strongest feedback. And what's important to note about that is that that's just basically showing us that the central nervous system, or the way that the electrical system is communicating, is experiencing some miscommunication, or it's malfunctioning, which is why we see these pretty intense stimuli. So what we're doing right there is bilateral stimulation, working with both hemispheres of the brain. And when we really started stimulating the corpus callosum, started getting that very strong response. But so yeah, that's what I got for y'all today. Just thought I'd kind of touch briefly on this pretty cool session I just did the other day. If you guys are enjoying this content, or if this type of work is resonating with you, please hit the subscribe button, smash the like button, leave a comment. Let me know how we can improve in any way, shape, or form. It's always a pleasure to be of service. Your presence is appreciated, and as always, wholeness.